Octo is pleased to bring you this Planner Unplugged series in partnership with Scottish Widows, focused on helping advisors deliver better outcomes for clients today and in the future. Hello and welcome to the latest episode of Planner Unplugged from Octo members. I'm Katey Pigden, Content Director, and as ever, I'll allow my guests to introduce themselves. So Christian, over to you.
Thank you, Katie, and thank you for having me on the podcast. I'm Christian Mather of One Day Wealth.
One Day Wealth. So we need to delve into that title then. One Day Wealth. What does that mean? And did you come up with it, or how did we get to that?
Someone that a lot of people will be familiar with, Dan Graham from Next Gen Planners. I think it's called Plan X actually now. So
Yeah, it's had a rebrand.
when I decided to start the business, I was speaking with Dan. He helped me design the website, and we needed to come up with a name. You know, some of the names that I wanted to come up with were taken, or the company names were taken. So we just went for a bit of a process. And I think at the time, like for me, it's all about when people say to me, one day I will, one day I'll do this, one day I'll, save money, one day I'll have a plan, one day I'll do that. And it's all about getting people to take that intention today.
Oh, yes. There we go then. So how did you become interested in financial planning? Has this been something you've been involved in for a long time? What's your background into that, Christian?
That's a very good question. I wouldn't say it's something. Yeah, definitely. And look, I wouldn't say it's something that I certainly didn't leave school wanting to be a financial advisor. And I don't think many people do, which is a shame in and of itself that we can't get more younger people into the profession. I think it was just circumstances. I was working in the city, worked there for 10 years in various sort of asset management, stockbroking roles. 2019 came, my youngest daughter, who's now 6, she was born. And I really didn't want to keep doing a job I didn't enjoy. Managing people, to be quite frank, I didn't like. And I'm working for someone that didn't fit with me ethically, morally, and a lot of other things. So I started looking into what my options would be, the qualifications for those roles suited for financial advice. And maybe naively, I thought I can leave a really highly paid 6-figure salary, and 18 months time, I'll be back where I was before. So yeah, December 2019, left my role, ended up in gardening leave. COVID came, and yeah, I ended up working for a company called Aegis Financial Planning, who are still my network now anyway. And ultimately, sort of moved through and had to learn a lot. So what became clear quite early on within financial planning, financial advice, however we want to term it, was I didn't want to just be someone that sold product. I wanted to be someone that helped families, business owners with better outcomes. And that's where I think the passion's really grown for it, from something that I could maybe have some more freedom and take my kids to school. Even at the start, it wasn't about working from home particularly. The pandemic helped me with that a lot. It's really grown into this passion to help people be financially free.
Yeah. Oh, so what was your role previously then? What were you doing that you wanted to escape from?
So I started out in 2010, 11 in stockbroking. Worked for a couple of firms. Ended up working for a small boutique company. And by the end of it, I was managing a sort of team of, some with discretionary managers, some was, just stockbroker traders. And I was managing a team of about 16 people. And ultimately, I didn't enjoy it. I didn't enjoy the work. I didn't enjoy doing what the company told me. And I definitely didn't enjoy managing 16 people in an environment where I didn't really believe in what it was. I think
then
very typically,
them, doesn't it?
yeah, exactly. And I think very typically, you go out to earn money, and you earn money, good money, and you think, well, my life's not actually better. In actual fact, it feels worse than it was before I had any money. So yeah, that's why I took this decision to come into this great profession. And I do believe that.
Funny enough, I've had someone else on the podcast previously who was that stockbroker background and was saying it's very transactional. And as you said, you wanted to step away from that side of things to actually get to know someone. And I I knew him long before I started writing about financial advice, actually. He's my best friend from school. That's
Okay.
his partner. And, so obviously, sometimes the way the world works, that's how you know someone. But I remember him then saying that he wanted to make that move. And suddenly financial advice and planning was the thing that he was considering doing. And now he is in that and doing it and loving it. And he said, I get to talk to people. I get to find out about people. Whereas the stockbroking was very much on the phone, make the trade, do that, move on to the next thing. And just he wasn't enjoying it anymore. And I'm sure that's fine for a lot of people. And, if they get something out of that and they enjoy it and maybe not just doing it for the money as well, then I'm sure it's a great career for many people. But it's interesting to see that appeal from financial planning, that draw of, okay, can I help someone else achieve what they want to do?
The best bits of the job for me personally are speaking to people, spending time with clients, and actually seeing what you put in place for them make a difference. And you do have to get from a transactional mindset, which is very short term, to it takes sometimes years to onboard people and get them on and get them everything in shape and do that. But you build a trust with them that is indescribable to what you would have ever done in any stockbroking role.
So when you made that move, then suddenly you had this dream, oh, yeah, I'll just go start picking up the salary again and it will all be fine. How difficult was it to make that transition? And how do you then start getting in front of clients and building up that base?
I think that's it. I think I used the word naivety, and I think it's quite correct. And I think we're a lot of business owners and I wouldn't say self-made people, but self-motivated people. We go into this, and probably if someone told us how hard it was going to be and how much it was going to cost us financially, in time and everything else, maybe we wouldn't have done in the first place. So I thought, for me, I'm working in stockbroking. I work with people that make a lot of money. Naturally, they're all going to be clients. Well, that was my first port of call, and to be honest with you, I think out of my whole community around that, if you want to call it that, or we have network, maybe two clients came on board with me. So I quickly realized that I needed to pivot and find a way to get my message across and learn and do it and do everything else. And I suppose that what I realized is you can be the best financial advisor in the world, but if you've got no one to talk to, you can't give any financial advice.
Yeah, bit of a dilemma there. I think so. I actually came across you via a post that I'd seen on LinkedIn, and I
Yeah.
remember connecting with you a while back, and you said to me, "Can I ask why? What prompted you to?" And I said, "Oh, I've been interested by few of your posts that have come up in my feed, and I was enjoying reading them really. And although I wasn't necessarily that target person that you're aiming for, because of writing about financial advice and my connection with it, I thought, oh, this is someone I'd want to be connected with and find out a little bit more. And then when I was in a previous role at the Landcat and was doing a little bit more on the PR side of things, I remember we had a bit of a chat then
Yeah.
about how can you start, I suppose, marketing yourself in a way, and how can you get known by you've obviously got connections already, and I'm sure you're connected with some financial advisors, but how do you start building that network and get out a little bit wider? So, like you said, you can give the best financial advice in the world, but how do you do some of these other things? How did you start going about that?
Yeah. So look, I think the first stage is the transition from being a transactional stockbroker in a big firm where everything's sort of done for you. One is you don't really know how to sit down with clients and how to speak to them and what questions to ask. My early stage was very much focused on that. But maybe after a couple of years of doing that and a bit of friends and family and picking up a few people here and there, I realized that the marketing, particularly in the world we live in today, was becoming very important. Yeah. I, I think it is trial and error. Different things work for different people. I've tried networking groups. I've tried all different kinds of ideas, ringing lists, unbiased, all these sort of different ideas. But one I was looking at, I was thinking, I can see people on LinkedIn, not always financial advisors, seeming to be able to generate new business from LinkedIn. It was nearly 3 years ago, December 2022. I said, right, I'm going to go all in on, can I develop my LinkedIn strategy to be able to attract a new business. And it was slow at first. It was all about posting, putting yourself out there, learning. And yeah, I think maybe 18 months, 2 years ago, we first had our first interaction. And a lot of it was that are the people that are willing to give me a little bit of time, ask a few questions, be open about. And you were one of the people that were really kind enough to give me some advice from. I think particularly we were speaking about how do I get into publications and how do I do that kind of things. It is trial and error. You've got to put yourself out there. There's loads of information out there, and you've got to find what works for you, what you feel comfortable with. You've also got to be willing to be a bit uncomfortable as well while you're trialing these different things. And I suppose for me, my attitude to it is a little bit, if you don't ask, you don't get. Someone can only
I
say
take that.
no. Yeah, yeah. So someone can only say no. And also an intrinsic thing that I've got 3 children and I've got a family and savings were going quickly. And yeah, and I think everyone thinks, oh, financial advisors, particularly clients, we're all either really wealthy or, we've got it all sorted, but we've got our own problems. And I would say the biggest change for me was being a little bit vulnerable, maybe. Yeah, like actually the stuff that gets me the most engagement, I suppose, within LinkedIn is where I put my own experiences out, where I've made mistakes, because people can then see that you're a real person, that
Yes.
you're not going to be judgmental. So yeah, it's been a little bit of trial and error, and I'm still trialing and erroring. And I think that's just the way that you get on, reading lots, speaking to lots of people, making sure you don't go down any, because there's a lot of people offering you a magic bullet, and if it's probably too good to be true, it probably is. And in all honesty, tens of thousands of wasted money on trying some of these things out as well. But you've got to be
Yeah.
willing to do it to see what works.
I think putting that personal touch is really important, especially in this world that we live in now, where it sort of feels very impersonal at times. And, AI and the content that's sort of being put out there, if you can feel that sort of human connection and there's something you can relate to and you can understand from that person, I think that's really important. But I think, as you also said, that these things don't happen overnight. And I think sometimes there's that tendency, isn't there, to think, right, yep, I'm going to put this piece of content out and that's going to take over and I'm suddenly going to get inundated with all of these leads and all of these people that want to come and work with me. And it's like, no, it takes time. You've got to keep working at it. You've got to keep, I suppose, showing up, and that consistency pays off then, doesn't it? Eventually, that
Definitely.
people are seeing that a lot more.
Yeah. Finding your tribe. I suppose the biggest change for me was maybe 18 months ago. I decided I wanted to work with business owners, and I've been trying to do that. But the problem is it was too wide a angle.
Yeah,
We
lots of
hear we
different
hear
types.
this a lot about niching, and my niche is founders of recruitment companies. That has been the biggest changer to me, because I want to understand how their businesses operate, what pain points that they have, where they're making mistakes, and then the content and what you do and the messages, the podcasts you go on. I go on a lot of recruitment podcasts. I go on
Yeah, I've heard you're quite
speak at
the podcast superstar.
yeah, yeah. I go to lots of I try and speak as many places as I can. I network within recruitment rather than financial advice,
Yeah.
and all of a sudden I'm opening up. And the more I speak to people, the more I start to understand what their problems are, what their pain points are, and I think that's the important thing. We need to understand. Sometimes in financial advice, we sit behind this sort of cover of compliance and being a bit afraid about what we can and can't say and what we can and can't do. But ultimately, if you understand what people's pain points are, what's if we want keeping them awake at night, what are they not doing, what they're missing, and you start talking about that on a regular basis, then you'll get some attention and you'll get people starting to come to you. So my biggest thing for people that are financial advisors is get out there, understand the people you want to. And again, it's asking people. At first, sometimes you just say, oh, can we get on a call?
Yes.
Some of my best connections and networking and now referral partners, people that are referring me business or professionals, are people that I reached out to and said, I'm working in recruitment. I'm a financial advisor. I do this. Can we have a chat? And then, yeah, and then half an hour. And again, you find out so much information because they've got a bank of clients that they're working with all the time, and they're like, "I really like what you do," and it sort of it goes from somewhere. But if you're not out there asking the question, like I did with you, Katie, if you're not out there saying, "Can you give me a bit of help?" in a good way, and if anyone's thinking, don't just drop into people. I think we probably shared like several messages before, and it's like, well, do you mind if we jump on a call? And I think after the summer holidays, we then did.
Yeah, absolutely. And I completely live by the same ethos as you of don't ask, don't get, because like you said, if they say no, they say no, and that's fine. But for everyone that does, there'll be hopefully a few that will say yes and share that time and help each other along the way, really. Because I was like, oh, why does this person think I know about this stuff, or that I could help thinking, well, actually, yes, I did work at money marketing, and I was always looking for new voices to get across and to sort of hear their story and to find out things. And it can be very easy to fall into the trap of, I'll just ask the same people that have always asked, really, or they've made themselves known previously for some reason or another. But they're also often known across all of those trade titles, and it becomes the same voices all of the time.
Definitely. Let me ask you, I suppose, from your perspective, is it fair to say you're a journalist within the money, the money environment, the financial advice world? So you're someone that's got a skill set that's different to mine.
Yes.
But you still, to be a good journalist, you still need to be able to go and ask people and find out things and understand that. So, sometimes it's looking for those kind of people that will have a slightly different perspective than you, and they can look at it in a slightly different way and say, well, if I was you trying to do what you were doing, and that's exactly what you said to me, I would do X, Y, and Z and do that. And again, I've used your advice, particularly as I've moved into this recruitment niche, to go to people that write in recruitment specific magazines and things like that to be able to say, well, I'm here. And I think what you said, maybe present them with an idea or present yourself as an expert in this area, and then you're going to help them come up with their own content as well.
Absolutely. I've often made some similarities between a journalism background and the financial advice planning world, because a lot of it is the soft skills, the questions, the getting to know someone, you're probing a little bit further. But for me, you're right. Like, I had no prior experience until I joined money marketing in 2019. So sort of probably similar times, really. um, I hadn't written about financial advice before. I'd heard of pensions, I'd heard of certain things. I probably didn't know financial planning as a career too much. I'd heard more of accountancy and all of that sort of thing. But I was very much hoping my journalism skills could carry me through. So I started off on a local paper, and you were never an expert in anything. You would write one story, you'd probably have to move on to the next thing. You'd go to court hearings, you'd go to council meetings, but then that human, personal bit of why it was important to those local people at the time was, and then when I moved into business publications, I suddenly had to learn these new sectors, and they all come with their own language. But you could then question, oh, well, why do we do it like that? Or why is this? So, I had someone refer to me as an expert. And I was like, no, I'm not an expert. I write for the experts, or I speak to the experts. I would not try and obviously give someone financial advice or
Yeah,
anything like that, but I will be prepared to ask you and people like you, well, what does that mean? Or can you explain that in a way that makes more sense to me, because there's so much jargon and technical knowledge and expertise that does come around this that you use together with those soft skills. So yeah, for me, it's ask the questions, try and meet people, find out, see what you can do. And hopefully where you do find nice people, I had to remember that a lot of people gave me their time as well. So when
mm,
I was trying to get my head around this, okay, who's prepared to help me and explain it? And so if you can pass that on in some way, you're often quite happy to do so because you remember being in that position yourself.
definitely. And look, I think as a journalist, as a financial advisor, what we're always trying to do is gain trust. We're gain trust in a morally right, ethical way. We're not gaining trust to get something out of them. And I think the best way to gain trust with people is to effectively be able to ask questions and open them up about something and show a general interest, because that, it's not about Yeah, and I see this happen. It's not about saying, "I'm Christian Mather, I'm from One Day Wealth, this is what we're gonna do for you," and you spent 5 minutes on your own monologue.
Running with
Actually,
that.
and I'm sure you're the same, yeah, I'm Katey from Octo, and this is what we do. Actually, it's how can I help you? What problems have you got at the moment? What do you want to talk about? And the more the other party can be talking, the more you're going to gain trust. You're going to, gain reputation. And again, you keep building that over the years. And it's the same in journalism, isn't it? Your sources, they need to trust you, need to open up. Sometimes you might be talking about confidential things or, opinions around subjects like the budget that we've just had, subjects that can cause controversy or opinion. So you need to be able to gain the trust of those network of people. But if you ask me what the biggest skill is when you're trying to bring new business on and new clients, it's to be able to gain trust quickly, understand that problem, and be honest about whether you can help that person
Yeah.
and do that. And try and set yourself up as the guide to helping them get the advice, whether that's with you or someone else.
And that's the thing, isn't it? That more people could benefit from having financial advice, and you might not always be the right fit for them. But that trust that you mentioned, very important in both professions. But I think both have also struggled with people can find it hard to trust. So for me, when I was training to be a journalist, there was the phone hacking scandal at the time.
Yeah.
And I remember going to a barbecue with one of my housemates, and she introduced me to someone and said, "This is Katey. She's a journalist." And I said, "Oh, can you not do that? Because suddenly, firstly, this isn't a
Shh.
work related thing, but don't say that because." And you'd get the jibes, "Oh, you're going to hack my phone." I said, "Look, I can't even access my own voicemail most of the time, someone else's." But there was that perception, and obviously we know it only takes a few bad apples to tarnish a whole profession. And journalism and financial advice are by no means the only ones that might have a difficult ride at times, but there has been that financial services can't trust them. Can't trust those people.
Yeah.
We've heard these terrible stories. There's been these scandals. There's been these high profile things that have happened. How could I can't trust these people with my money. So do you find that that is something you've had to overcome as well? That if people have got a perception around that?
Yeah. And any advisors, I think, that will be listening to this will know this intrinsically from when they've done it. We're still suffering probably from global financial crisis.
Yeah.
The bankers are bad people, which, we're not bankers anyway. Probably, in the grand scheme of things, financial advice as a profession is fairly new, maybe compared to, let's say, accountants, solicitors, doctors, other professionals that we think about. Probably before my time, these and 80s, maybe there were some not so great practices. And like every profession, there are still people out there not being ethical and moral and doing things in the right way. And when people have these bad experiences, and by the nature we deal with investments, so bad experiences, if not communicated right, it can be quite easy to have. But when people do have these, it creates resistance to it in the future. We also have things like government legislation. So just to tell you a bit of a story of a conversation I've had this morning.
Yeah.
Okay, recruitment founder, 20 years in business. Read one of my posts, wanting to have a conversation. He's 46. On the face of it, in a good position, but his starting point to me was, "I hate pensions." And I was like, "Well, pensions aren't the only thing we do. What we want to do is we want to have a plan for you, because you told me you're 46 and yeah, 9 to 10 years, your kids are 18 to 20, and you want to be able to, be financially free, not particularly retired, but just know that you can be financially free." So that's what is the problem with pensions, and it was misconceptions really. The government are going to take my money. There's going to be a tax rate. So all these things that have been happening around the budget, and all these where these changes come, they're the things that we're handling all the time. The reality is a pension's a very efficient, tax efficient vehicle for a business owner, and it's one way for them to extract money out of their business so that they can save for the future. So that when you are in your 50s, you can then start to pull an income out of it. And so he doesn't trust the system. His next thing is you all get paid loads of commission. So again, as we know, RDR quite a long time ago now, we don't get trail commissions, but there's still that conception of you're just selling me something to get the money out of me. It's not like you're going to benefit me. So even just having a short conversation with him, we had to dispel a few myths, find out what he wanted, and and say, look, is it worth us having another conversation? Thankfully, that client did, but that's a typical scenario that we often see, and I often see with business owners is fundamentally, I'm going to lock all my money away in a pension, and I'm not going to be able to get it out, or like that liquidity would be better in my business. But what he said to me is, look, that's been my thing, but I realise over the last 10 years I've made some no mistakes of investing in some of the wrong things. Maybe I've grown the business bigger than I needed to, maybe driven by a bit of ego. And I realize now I've got this crucial amount of time to change that. So
Yeah.
he's been through that, through that path. And he's obviously got this misconception about what we do as financial advisors. And it's very difficult to communicate what our value is, because I think you've almost got to experience and live it.
Yes.
You've got to go through it. Like, there's very much this, well, what am I getting for my money? Well, what is it? Because it's not this intrinsic thing. If you're a lawyer, you're getting if you give legal advice. If you're an accountant, you're doing account checks. There's a very sort of, it's like, well, what, you're just setting up a pension and ISA for me, and it's trying to get away from that to, no, the outcome is we will put a structure and strategy in place. We can't guarantee the numbers, but we'll put that structure and strategy in place to give you the best opportunity by 55 of being financially free, if you can do that.
Do you find that defining value is quite tricky? It is one of those things that we said about the soft skills and trying to get some of these messages across. But like you said, unless someone has been through the planning process and had someone helping them get to that stage, and maybe they might not even realize the value until later on when they have retired, when they wanted to retire or doing those things. Hard to define and put an actual, okay, what does that value mean? Because it's by far more than monetary terms and the chart forever going up and trying to show someone in that sense. It's, yeah,
Yeah.
that listening,
Look,
finding out what they want, what means to them. Everyone's going to have their own idea of, what a comfortable retirement looks like as well, for example.
the simple answer to defining value is it's very, very difficult. And it's something that's always going through my mind. And please, if anyone's listening to this and they've got some good ideas around it, feel free to get in contact with me. Yes, I think it is. I really believe that financial products and advice are getting more and more commoditized as we go along. Yeah, there's a race to the bottom on costs and that kind of thing. There's obviously this big debate, which I think is a damaging one, about active and passive and all of that thing. Because ultimately it should be, where are you now? Where do you want to get to? What returns do you need to get there? How much money do you need to get there? All the others, it's almost for me that the financial advice is like the 10% at the end now. So it's defining that value of how can we help you deliver your outcome. And you can only do that through questioning the client, understanding their, I come back to that sort of pain problem scenario. And if you can start to understand what their pains are and how you relieve it, if you've got a headache, you take paracetamol. What's our paracetamol? What's their headache? What's their paracetamol? How do we define that? Because if the client feels listened to and understood, and then we've got a solution that's going to help take some of that pain away. Basically, and if you're not surveying clients and asking for feedback on a regular basis, you're not finding this out. But what do clients value in the long term? Yeah. So what I do after every annual planning meeting, I spend 10, 15 minutes. I ask them face-to-face feedback. What do you find valuable about the service? What's been, particularly good? What am I doing well? And particularly, what am I not doing well? And I also push them a little bit, because everyone sort of says no. So come on,
Yeah,
if
no,
there's
fine.
one thing we could change, because that's where you start to really find out what it is. So just to give you an instance, my whole business is over Zoom. And when I do an annual planning call, or when I take new clients on, I record them a Loom video, 5 minutes, to summarize maybe the cash flow planning or what we've agreed and that kind of thing. I've done that for the last 2 years, and I've had a 20% open rate. So just think about that. we've just gone through an hour and a half meeting. We've talked about all your financial life, and I've sent you a 5-minute summary. You even watched the video. So the value isn't in what you're producing. We've got to produce a report. When you actually speak to most people, it's like, it's just a peace of mind that it's been looked after, that someone else is taking that weight off their shoulders and that way. So then it's how do we understand that pain, and how do we get that paracetamol to take the headache?
Because in the consumer duty world that we live in now, you've got to try and evidence those things a little bit more. And you actually preempted me, Christian, because I was going to say, like, is it easier to get clients to define that value rather than you define it? Because obviously they're the ones that you said, you've taken the weight off my shoulders, you've given me that peace of mind. But I suppose the challenge is sometimes, do they know exactly what the pain is that they are trying to relieve? They come into you sometimes and there may be a specific reason, or if they've had a referral, maybe they're a little bit more clued up. But if they haven't, sometimes they maybe not even be able to articulate what it is they're trying to solve until you've managed to build that rapport a little bit more. They can trust you. They start opening
Yeah.
up and revealing those things.
And that's how you can differentiate yourself from other advisors, your USP. Most people are going to come in with a specific problem. I've got these pensions, or, I know I should be, like, one I hear a lot is, I know I should be doing something, but what is it? And we have to get from, actually, as advisors, what we want to do is we almost want to provide solutions. Oh, that's great. You've got some pensions, let's consolidate them and sort that out. But what's the underlying? So only by some questioning and asking open questions and having that, can you actually get to the underlying? What is it? What are the pensions for? What's the plans for the future? What are you concerned about? And then, so there's no way that clients can articulate their pain straight away, but with the right questions, you should find out where that is. And when you start hitting that and you understand it, you'll start seeing more and more conversion, more people saying saying yes on the call, or when it is, because they'll be like, they get me and they found out that, and we've had that conversation, and not only is he going to solve the problem I started with, he's actually going to do a lot more for it. And to your question about the value's in the eye of the beholder.
And now for a few words from our content partner, Scottish Widows.
Making it easier for advisors, Scottish Widows brings market expertise, dedicated distribution support, and practical insights on the topics that matter, from consumer duty to the protection gap. You'll find advisor-ready tools, explainer content, protection insights, and regular thought leadership, alongside a team that can help with cases big and small. For more information about Scottish Widows and the support it provides to advice firms, speak to our business development team by emailing protectsales@lloydsbanking.com.
I'm sure there's a lot of people that agree with me on here, but the FCA asking us to show the value or tell the client what the value is almost impossible. Yeah, we can list out everything we do and why it adds value. And I'm sure I've seen great reports from likes of Vanguard and people like that, the advisor alpha and all of that, which is great, which I personally think most clients don't care. It's actually for the client to say what's valuable for it. It might be the smallest thing. In my experience, that peace of mind, that security, my family are going to be looked after if something happens to me. If it's a business owner I work with, my partner, husband, wife, that doesn't get involved in the finances, and something happens to me, they know you, and you can sort of step in and make sure that things are looked after. Those sort of things are immeasurable in price.
Yeah. And if someone does say that, though, in terms of, like, I look after the finances, but, my partner doesn't, do you try and encourage them to involve them a little bit more in that process?
I will not take a client on unless I speak to both partners.
Right.
That's it.
Okay. Yeah.
The red line, I've learned that early on, because ultimately, if they're not willing to bring their partner in, is there a reason for that? I get there's, that partner that maybe doesn't get involved in the money. There is a lot of nervousness to come and having that conversation. Yeah. And again, you try and relax it. We're not going to sit here talking about what you spend. We want to know what it is you want and what you do. And so, yeah, for me, it's a red line. If there's person and their partner, wife, husband, whatever it might be, they have to both be in the call. So I'll normally go through the initial stages, and it's like, well, now we have to speak that, otherwise I'm not engaging with you. Because where I've started earlier and I've not done it, there's always been like, well, we're not really planning, are we? We're doing what you think the plan should be, not what the other person thinks. No, not what you both think. And is
Yeah.
there a miscommunication in that relationship about money that I don't want to get in the middle of?
I was speaking to an advisor previously, and he was saying about that purpose around retirement. And actually, it's been fascinating having the couple in the room, because when they are at the stage where they feel they can articulate what they want, one will say, I want to do this, and we're going to go and do this and do that. And the other one looked and was like, what? No, I don't want to do those things. And so sometimes we haven't had these discussions as partners, as family members, or anything like that. So often the questions that you are asking, you're finding out something about someone for the first time that their nearest and dearest doesn't necessarily
I remember
know.
one client telling me they went to university, and her husband turned around and said, "What? You went to university?" And it's like, wow, like, yeah, like literally they are often, finding those things out. No one's ever asked them these questions before.
Yeah.
We have to be careful saying what you want, because it's a very loaded, difficult question to answer. Often, one of the better ways is saying what you don't want. Often people can list that off and say, "Well, I don't want to live like this," and I don't. I've still got one client, and they've got on the top of their financial plan is, we want to be able to retire without having to eat beans on toast every day. Like
I mean,
literally,
not
yeah.
every day, but occasionally.
Occasionally, it's
There's nothing
okay.
wrong with some beans on toast with some cheese as well.
But again, it just shows people's mentality. It's sometimes not what they want; it's what they don't want and want
Don't
to
want.
avoid. And it can be a much better base to start building up those intrinsic values that are going to take them through the whole planning process, rather than, I want £1 million or I want a £50,000 income by X date. When you start talking about, well, actually, I want to live this kind of life, and this is what I want, and this is what I don't want, and that's where you get much better value and outcomes from what we do.
Do you ever use like the retirement living standards? Because when people are trying to picture what does that look like, there's been these standards that are put out in
Yeah.
terms, well, here's a
Is it
minimum.
money? They're actually the
So there's
government-based ones, aren't
Pensions UK. So I think
Yeah,
it used
that's it.
to
Yeah,
be
yeah. So I think I've
PL.
seen them like, I've seen it. I've done posts about them in the past as well. So I mean, I'm not averse to them. But and I think when we talk about averages and average retirement and again, we depersonalize it for people, because what can be, a red line for one person is the discretionary income for another. I think it is very important. Bearing in mind with my client base and what I tend to do a lot more with accumulators in what I do. Yeah, I'm working with sort of business owners, probably 40 to 50. Some of them are working towards an exit, like some of them not. And one of the most interesting thing that often comes about the non-business, not owning partner, or the one that works in the business, is their greatest fear is, well, if you exit this business, is our life going to change?
Yeah.
And it's a conversation they've never really had. And I've seen it also derail multi-million-pound sales, because that partner was like, "You're not selling that business because I'm too worried that that's not going to be enough money for us." And I actually had one advisor bring me in to run through the numbers with them, to give them clarity of, you're going to be all right. So it wasn't, everything was going well, but this third party that wasn't involved in the business, that had never spoken to the business advisors, the M&A people, all of that, was the person that was sort of stopping that sale going through. And look, it was a risk for them, because they could have brought me in and I could say, well, actually, it's not enough money.
It's not
So
going to work.
actually, you need to keep working a little bit longer, because if you do, you're putting your futures at risk.
So when you decided to go down the niche route, what made you think recruitment? Because your career background wasn't in. So what made you think, oh, I'll go for recruitment?
So a lot of people talk about niching, and I think a lot of people might be listening to this thinking, oh, yeah, it's something we've heard a lot about and we've been thinking about it. And I was no different. It's like, yeah, you need to niche, but it feels like a risk, because it feels like you're just going to commit the next part of your life to. However, I think it's overcomplicated. From my perspective, I was just looking. Look, I think I've seen a lot of people do dentists and doctors and other professional services. And maybe I was just looking for somewhere where there was lots of business owners. It was a growing market. It had people I could help, people from an age perspective I could relate with. And funnily enough, the idea about recruitment for some reason started germinating because I had one client in recruitment. It started germinating in my mind. And it was just as simple as one of the dads my son plays cricket with, we were sitting there having a few beers, watching the cricket and he was a recruiter. And he even said to me, we were talking about it, and he's like, this is like perfect for you and what you want to do. And it was just like, let's take the plunge. It's like change the title on my LinkedIn page. I still haven't really updated my website because it's quite generalist still. But let's take the plunge. Let's start going to networking events and doing it. What harm? Because what I'm doing now isn't generating enough of what I need. And I never look back. And I think my one thing is find something that look at markets, where there's plenty of businesses. You can go on Companies House and see how many businesses are in that sector, where the profile of clients are the kind of work, like for me, I'd never want to work with, to be honest with you, doctors and dentists or engineers. Particularly engineers are quite technical, but other people might really like that. If you're really technical and you like getting in the detail, get yourself into the engineer sector. Go and find that, just go and find it. Start speaking to 5 people, go and speak to them that work in that industry. You'll probably know someone already. Maybe there's a client there. Maybe you've got some clients in that. And just go for it. Like, to be honest with you, cancel going to all the recruit conferences for a year, spend all that money going on to conferences for me, recruitment, and go and speak to people. And you'll be amazed. Those kind of people are always trying to get you, the accountants, the lawyers. Like, I could never get an account to give me business. Now I've got 3 that I see on a regular basis. They're referring clients to me. I can maybe refer stuff back to them. I've got a lawyer I spoke to last week at a big firm that's recruitment specific. He's like, I really like what you did. Like, he was like, well, actually, what I can help you with is when people get big settlements from
Yeah.
work and they need some advice, I'll pass them on to you. And all of a sudden, I've built an ecosystem from just giving it a go. And if
Yeah.
you're thinking about it, give me a shout, by all means. Just give it a go, because what have you got to lose? If what you're doing now isn't generating enough, actually niching will change the way you see things.
I spoke to an advisor recently as well. I think she was one of the first ones I had when I started doing the series. And she was saying she'd set up her business and it was because her background was retail. She decided to go on that success. And then people warning her against going niche because, why are you going to restrict yourself too much? I said, well, actually, it does open the doors wider anyway, because if I am speaking to this person and then I asked about their partner, well, their partner might not be in retail, they might be in something else completely, and suddenly that's another person. And then if they do refer me out wider, then suddenly it might not be that niche that I was aiming for initially, but yes, I can still help that client, or it's the right fit, or anything like that. And I suppose if you found your niche, like you said, if you find that lawyer that maybe has found theirs and an accountant that's found theirs, suddenly you have built up a bit of a
You've got commonality, haven't you? We've got a common client in interest. Like, there's commonality with it, definitely.
But I've
from
got
that
to ask, Christian,
perspective.
did the dad become a client?
No, he didn't. He
We still need to
lives
keep that
literally like
conversation
5
going.
doors down. I think actually my rule is clients can become friends, but friends can't become clients. And probably
Okay.
because I think, again, when someone lives 5 doors down from you, really, do they want to open up their financial life to you? Because it's a little bit like that. So he hasn't, but you
Brown
never know
envelopes
in the
that come
future.
through the door.
Yeah.
But recruitment.
I did invite him to a recruitment event last week. So I sponsored a recruitment awards and I had some places, and he came along with me. So I introduced him as the man that got me into recruitment.
There we go then. So, but I mean, it's that idea, isn't it? And obviously you've run with it. But we mentioned earlier in the conversation, you said that the profession itself, financial advice, financial planning, could do with attracting more people. So how do we solve this recruitment issue in the sector that you work in directly?
I think it's a real problem. I introduced you to a friend of mine, Guy, and I think he's coming on to the
Yes,
podcast.
he's coming on. I've pounced on that straight away, Christian. Don't ask, don't get.
and he'll be a much better guest than I am as well. But I really like guys running a great firm, and he's started to build up and scale up and this. So I think there's two big problems for me. One is if you actually get good at this, we can actually run really nice lifestyle businesses in financial advice. One person businesses where you can outsource a lot of the stuff, can earn very good money, you can do very good work for clients, and you don't have to you don't have to deal with building a company up and taking that risk on. So that's one problem, because that means maybe people like me making decisions and saying, do I just keep doing this and take a few clients on a year and just keep adding and, maybe slightly clients that pay me slightly more and a bit more valuable in that sense? Or do I, see there's an opportunity, see all this sort of inquiries I'm getting in and build it out to something bigger? Because without those businesses, there's not space to bring on and train people. And one of the biggest mistakes I made, you asked me this earlier, I think, was going self-employed straight away. Time again, I'd have gone into another business and learnt the ropes, from that perspective. And particularly if I was, I'm 41 now, particularly if I was a bit younger as well. So it starts with have we got enough opportunities? Are enough people willing to take a risk and spend money on training people? Because there's also that thought of, I spend all this money and time training someone, and they bring all these clients on, but they might leave, and then they might try and take my clients as well. And there's definitely, I don't think that's, if you've got a business that's basically provided you with those clients, they should be that business's clients. It's not, you haven't got right. So that's the first problem, is there's not enough opportunity. And second problem, we talked about it before, I think we've got an image problem. I actually think if you're 18 leaving school, or you're 21 leaving university, what a great profession. Because the ideal, if you're young, is to probably start in like administration and maybe work your way through and learn the ropes from that perspective. But and also it's probably hard to have conversations with someone that's maybe 60. But also there's lots of people in that generation that need the advice. I think you can do great subscription models at low cost, and if you're that age, you can grow up. But if you start young, by the time you're 30, you could have like a reoccurring income that's that's more than other professions at 30. That's more than accountants and with those other people we talked about, maybe not dentists because they're bloody expensive, aren't they? But maybe but certainly like accountants, doctors, these people that have to do a lot of training to go through. So if you can do that, I mean, by the time you're 40, you'd be flying. But what tends to happen in financial advice is it's more of a second career. So I think we've got an image problem of attracting the right people. And again, maybe they both come together. Are the opportunities there? And have we got the right sort of image because I'm sure you know the stats better than me, or you've seen the stats, but we've got a lot of people, I'd say less hair than me, but not less hair than me. We've got a lot of people with grayer hair than me and significantly older than me, maybe 50 plus, maybe even more.
Maybe thinking about their own retirement.
Yeah, well,
right?
there's a fat tail, isn't there, of these advisors that are dropping off and they're not getting replaced at the other end. So it's a big problem. It's one I haven't got the answers for, but we need to be encouraging probably people like me to take that next step in. And maybe our friends at the FCA are making the barriers to starting your own DA firms and doing that a little bit too difficult. They're trying to concentrate a lot more into the bigger firms and the networks and things like that. We need innovation, and we need fresh, new, young people in.
I've interviewed a couple of young female advisors that were saying
Exactly what I was going to say.
They didn't really have a role model to look towards, and I think they will be the ones that inspire the ones to follow suit. And it's really interesting to hear. One of the things was, has there been that concern that clients will push back of, well, you can't advise me on a pension, what do you know? you're not old enough. But actually they've said it's not come from the clients. The clients have been okay. Sometimes it's either people in the profession that have said, client's not going to listen to you. And I was thinking about it earlier. I was like, when we were saying dentist, I wouldn't go in and question if the dentist is younger than me. I'd think, right, well, they've qualified, they've done it. I'm trusting them. I'm trusting the doctor. It is weird that we think about it in that way of like, oh, if they're younger, you couldn't possibly do this job. Well, why not? If a lot of it is people skills and getting to know.
Yeah. And I think if you are younger, that's probably why going into a firm and, learning the ropes and being able to say, yeah, I am, but I've got the experience behind me. I've got that. One of the big things, for me, if I do work, I say, look, I'm 41. You don't want an advisor the same age as you because they're going to retire at the same time as you. Yeah, you want someone that's younger. Consequently, I do work. I'm really passionate about working with. I get some 30-year-olds, 28-year-olds, those kind of people that, again, the Henrys, I earn is not rich yet. And they need the advice, and it's finding a way to give them that advice. But on the consequence, maybe they can then leverage my experience in life to, maybe not make a few of the mistakes that I've made. And, we talked about that vulnerability and saying, look, don't do this, do it like this, or, look to do this to avoid things. But yeah, it's one of the things as well, we need more women. Definitely, there's a massive inequality of women, and I think women make better advisors. I really do. I know some women. I do. I think because and I've been a bit generalistic here, but I think they've got high emotional intelligence, and I think they're able to empathise a lot better than and that's whether that's a nature thing or whatever it is. The women that I've seen as advisors are very good at listening, but they're also very good at telling people how it is, and and being able to offer first-rate advice. Yeah,
I think
let's
those
get more. Let's get more in the profession.
are really important anyway, aren't they? Like we said, whether it is a young person coming through or a second careerist versus someone that has been in the profession a longer time, both can learn from each other. There can be that questioning, why do you do it this way? And
Yeah.
sometimes the answer is because we always have, right? People
Yeah.
will say that. But
It's the worst answer in the world, that, isn't it?
yeah, if there's a valid reason for that you've done it that way. Whereas I think I'd prefer, actually, yes, we have thought of that thing that you said, but we
Yeah.
tried it and it didn't work for the
Yeah.
following reasons. Or we tried it 5 years ago and maybe we need to come back to it now. And I think also there's no need to dismiss older people as well, because they will have had that experience and seen things from a different perspective too. So I think the two could complement each other a lot more. It doesn't have to be a versus. You said about active passive earlier. Well, is there a place for both? Probably.
Definitely. It's not, as long as someone's got conviction and a reason to do it, and it's right for the client, 100%. Yeah, like there's a room for everything. It has to be. Yeah, if we're not an open profession and we're not open to every sex and creed and opportunity and what, so long as it's right for the client and it's done in the right, with the right context and it for the right reasons, then we should be open to it.
I think I mentioned it to you in a separate conversation, Christian, about an idea of the mistakes made, lessons learned. So you may be my first target where I ask you to write a piece on that. But as we're coming to an end, Christian, and I've really enjoyed the conversation, thank you very much.
Okay.
Is there a personal money rule that you live by?
That's a very good question. For me, doing this job has intrinsically changed my relationship with money for the better. And I think the one that really resonates with me at the moment is money can make us happy as long as we understand it. People that haven't got any and are worried about it will not be happy. Will not always be happy. Where I would look at it is, it's the difference between what we have and our expectations. So if our expectations are greater than what we have, then that's going to make us unhappy. Whereas if our expectations are below what we have, then we're a lot happier. So I think it's a bit classic, but it's living within your expectations.
Absolutely. I think that's a good way to finish it there then. Thank you so much for your time, Christian. Really appreciate it. And yes, looking forward to having a chat with Guy. So thank you for the recommendation. Anybody else that you think I should be in touch with, please let me know.
But there are a few people, so and I'd like to just say thank you very much for having me on. I've really enjoyed the conversation. If anyone wants to reach out for me, LinkedIn's a great place to find me. Feel free to come and drop into my inbox and we'll have a chat.
Thank you very much. I think that's really important about the profession as well, of that getting to know each other as well a little bit better. And yes, your target audience wasn't a room full of other financial advisors, but you can all learn from each other. So why not?
Yeah, look, we still have to talk. I still have to talk to them and we still have to learn from each other and see what's going on. So 100%. And yeah, thank you very much.
Lovely. Thank you.
Thank you.
Scottish Widows is investing in business protection, better journeys, clearer tools, and reassuringly simple products. Follow Scottish Widows Protection Advisor on LinkedIn, speak to one of the business development team, or visit our advisor protection site.